Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our March event of the 2024 SalesPad webinar series. My name is Elizabeth Morris. I'm the events manager here at Cavallo. Several of you know this, but to view the entire lineup that we have scheduled for the year, I do encourage you to visit our events page at www.cavallo.com/events-schedule. You'll be able to register for every webinar here on out for the rest of the year and also view recordings of past webinars, including today's webinar starting around tomorrow. So the format for today's webinar will be a 45-minute presentation followed by some time for Q&A. Feel free to ask questions at any point throughout the webinar using that Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen. We will do our very best to get to all of those at the end. Just want to remind everyone that today's webinar is being recorded, so you will have access to it, like I said, post-webinar, and you'll be able to share it with colleagues. We are very excited to have Kevin Albee, Senior Implementation Consultant from Cavallo, with us today. Kevin is definitely ready for this webinar. He himself has been on 15 plus full-blown inventory manager implementations, and he's worked on over 175 different projects on the implementation team over the last 5 years. He's going to take us on a deep dive into SalesPad Inventory Manager. So Inventory Manager, powerful tool that brings action and analysis into one interface so you can run the best version of your business. So before I spoil any more, I am going to turn things over to Kevin to introduce himself and get us started. Kevin, take it away.
Awesome. Thanks, Elizabeth. All right. It's like Elizabeth mentioned, I'm Kevin Albee. I've been a consultant here at Cavallo for just a little over 5 years now. Before coming to Cavallo, I graduated and went to college at Grand Valley State University. That's here in Grand Rapids, Michigan, for anyone who's familiar with the college or the area. A little bit about myself, some hobbies. I am very, very, very slowly writing, producing my own album. Very into checking out new restaurants, really like a mix of everything from Mediterranean to Indian to Italian. And then big fan of playing video games, just either by myself or with friends. All right, but jumping into it, it's kind of the initial baseline question of what is Inventory Manager? So Inventory Manager is a product that we sell here at Cavallo. It is essentially a warehouse management application that integrates with Dynamics GP and SalesPad Desktop. For anyone who's been a SalesPad customer for a while, or Cavallo customer for a while, you might know it as data collection, is what it used to be before we rebranded it to Inventory Manager. With its software, it operates with supported mobile devices equipped with a scanner to perform essential inventory transactions, while data collection or Inventory Manager automatically updates Dynamics GP in the background. So this includes a mixture of functions from inventory transfers, order fulfillment, so picking, packing of orders, PO receiving, printing out labels, generating reports, and all sorts of things across the board. So when it comes to Inventory Manager, there are two key sides that come to it. There is the Inventory Manager Console. So that's going to be kind of more the actual software and program that's going to be installed on either your server or your own personal desktop. And then there's also the Inventory Manager mobile app, which is going to be downloaded on the mobile devices or the scanners that you have. So the Inventory Manager Console, like I said, that's going to be access to your computer or server. And that's where you're going to be kind of doing a mixture of things. There's a lot of settings and security that are configured there. And those impact both the console itself and also a lot of things that you see on the mobile app. So in particular, what menus you have access to over there, how those function, and also some of the visual aspects of how they look and feel. One other thing too is there's a lot of label functionality on the console side of things. So printing out labels for your bins, item numbers, all sorts of different stuff like that. And then over on the mobile side of things, like I said, there's all sorts of different functions that take place there. So we've got picking or fulfillment of your orders, packing as well, receiving inventory off of purchase orders, inventory transfers, stock counts, etc. It's really a wide range of different menus and things, but those listed there are usually the more common ones that we run into. And I can show you a bunch of screenshots and go into more detail, but at this point in time, what makes most amount of sense is just get into an actual demo and show you what this all looks like. So we are going to start off with the console side of things first. Oops. So like I mentioned, with the Inventory Manager console, that's essentially installed in either your server or a personal computer that you're using or work machine. So you can see here, I've got it as SalesPad Inventory Manager. So just kind of like you would have with SalesPad Desktop, it's its own shortcut you get. Basically open that up. Give that a moment. I'm actually going to skip that as I already have it open here. So kind of like with SalesPad Desktop, if you're familiar with that, you're going to have your connection here. And that's just basically pointing to the database that you're connecting and logging into. So that's going to be your live database, or maybe if you have multiple company databases, you can create different connections pointed to each one, or if you have a test database as well. So I'm going to come in here, log in with my account. For reference as well too, the user account that I'm logging in here is technically a separate account from what I have in SalesPad Desktop. So users that are set up in SalesPad Desktop might not have access to Inventory Manager and the other way around. These are all unique accounts you create separate from that. Same thing as well from like GP accounts, all separate. So getting in here, for reference, I'm an admin user, so I'm gonna have access to everything, but just kind of a quick note, this is all controlled through security. So this is definitely something to be filtered down to make sure that admin users have access to everything or admin functions, and then maybe users who just need to go in and print out labels and things like that can only do that. But unlike desktop, there's only be 2 tabs here, so it's a little bit simpler to get through. Got the application tab here. This is main kind of functions and things that take place in the console. And setup takes place to basically configure a lot more settings and functionality. So this is usually more geared towards the scanner side of things. And we also have a drop down here too for additional things like active users, settings, security, etc. So to start off with, we are going to dive into, let's see, the settings side of things first. Let's see. Actually, we'll go through some of the menus here. So kind of a few basic ones we have are inventory lookup. So if you got access to SalesPad Desktop, somewhat similar to that, basically putting your item number here. Then you can see here's my item number. Also seeing one record per item number per warehouse. You can kind of get information specific to that in terms of inventory. So you can see from my warehouse 01-N, got 1 quantity on hand, 0 available, and so on. Down below, we also have some additional information. So you can see things like sales fulfillments. If you had any serial lot numbers associated with that, you could use that as well. So again, just kind of basic inventory lookup information. So this might be helpful for someone who maybe doesn't have access to the scanner and they don't have access to SalesPad Desktop, but they're at a machine and they need a quick, easy way to look up information. This could help them out. Another thing as well is got your bin lookup. So one thing to mention here, for anyone who's not familiar, on the Dynamics GP side of things, there are 2 setups, at least relevant to what I'm talking about now when it comes to inventory. So there is a multi-bin environment and non-multi-bin environment. So by default, GP environments are not set up for multi-bin. So what that means is all of your inventory is going to be stored at the warehouse level. But if you work with your GP partner, usually that's how it goes, you can set your environment to be a multi-bin environment. So that way you're actually creating bins per warehouse. So for warehouse A, you might have bins 1, 2, and 3, and so on. So that way you can be more kind of fine-tuned to say exactly where your inventory is. So some additional work and stuff that goes into actually tracking our inventory on a bin level, but it gives you a lot more visibility and trackability and functionality when it comes to that kind of stuff. So for anyone who's not familiar with bins in your setup, that might be something you have to work with their GP partner to look into, seeing if that's what you'd want to change over to do. But again, you can see over here, got my warehouses and all my bins that I have set up for it. So I have all sorts of different warehouses in here. And then down below, you can see also too some general item inventory that kind of related to these bins as you're going through. And then kind of a secondary point is we have this print bin labels out here. So this is a good one, especially for customers that are maybe moving over to multi-bin environment GP. For reference to a lot of customers that we are implementing Inventory Manager with who aren't already in multi-bin, that's something that usually gets involved with the project. Just again, as you're picking and fulfilling orders and so on, it helps to kind of have that specific bin level detail to know exactly where your inventory is at. So kind of nice thing here is you can come in, see all your bins, and then you can kind of print out labels. So I could select these, and I'm just holding down the shift key or control key to kind of multi-select. Use my print button and create out different labels. So these can be kind of specified. Maybe you want to have your own logo on there or something, you could do that. And then I'm just going to preview this, change the number of labels over here as well if you'd like to. Click OK. Give that a second, and I've got on my other screen here. And there we go. So again, this is a very simple barcode, but it's a nice thing. So if you got a label printer, you print these out, stick it where those bins are located at. So as you're going through the process on the scanner, which we'll get into more detail later on, you can actually scan these barcodes and kind of automate more of your process and take out some of the user error. Also have a print item labels. Again, very similar idea. Search by things like by your item number, serial lot number, PO number, and so on. Choose your records in here. So you can see I've got 120 SD-RAM showing up multiple times. So I've got different receipts that it's present on. So again, multi-select, use my print tool, and I've got a test report. Choose out where you're printing to, but I'm just going to preview. Give that a moment, and there we go. And again, all these reports are highly customizable, so these can definitely be changed around, add additional information in, add images like your own logo or things like that as well too. Let's see here. And I'm not going to go through all these menus because there's a lot in here. But we also have, see, print put away report. Some customers will use that. Kind of gives you detailed information when it comes to POs that you have in your system to kind of help you out, get a better idea of maybe what you should be putting away or kind of receiving and processing. So give you a very quick example of what that looks like with my current version. Again, fully customizable. There we go. So you kind of see it's pretty basic with the out of the box one, but gives you your item information, kind of give you suggestions on where to put it away at. So I can see this item here. I already have 17 present in my auto crate bin in this warehouse. Maybe that's where I should go and receive and put this away to, and go from there. Let's see. So I'm not going to get too much into the application side of things here with some of the other settings. What we're going to dive into next is going to be the settings menu here. So again, settings menu here is going to be a mixture of things that pertains to both the console itself and the mobile devices. For the most part, though, a lot of these pertain more to the mobile devices in my experience from what I've worked with. And the nice thing is you can usually tell if it's referencing the mobile device setting by having scanner in here. So if I want to, I can look at picking scanner. And a lot of these are settings that is going to pertain specifically as you're using the picking or technically the fulfillment menu on the scanner. So there's all sorts of different things in here. So you also have scripting hooks as well too. So maybe as you're performing picking tickets, or I'm sorry, picking process on the scanner, maybe you wanted to look at your database and double check things, make sure everything's working as expected and the numbers that you're picking are accurate to how it follows in your process. We could technically do scripting here. I've had some customers in the past I've worked with where their items are set up so they're only allowed to be picked in certain quantities. So like maybe they're doing it in eaches, but for item 120 SD-RAM, that should be picked in quantities of 5. So I think I worked on a script in the past where I basically checked the quantity that was submitted on the scanner and then looked at like the item card or user defined field in SalesPad on the item master, basically compared it to say like they picked a quantity of 4 or maybe a quantity of 6. But it looks like based on what we have here, this should be picked in quantities of 5. So we're going to give the user a pop-up error on the scanner, stop that process, and let them know that they need to kind of readjust that accordingly. So these scripts, there's a lot of different things we can account for if you're looking for something maybe a little out of the box, or if you're just looking to kind of account for different scenarios and kind of make sure everything's working as makes sense in your business and your processes. One of the other key things here, especially when it comes to the picking and packing side of things, are our lookup batches here and how it integrates into the workflow. So usually a big part when it comes to picking is integrating this into the workflow on the SalesPad desktop side of things. So you can see here we have a setting for picking sales document lookup batch. So the idea is we can have a designated batch or queue, also called, on the SalesPad side of things where your orders are the point of actually getting picked on the scanner. So for a simple workflow, maybe you create an order in SalesPad desktop that starts off in a new order queue. And then as you go through, create your order, add all the items and so on. Maybe the next step is getting picked on the scanner. So you could forward the order in SalesPad and that'll go to the picking queue. Maybe that's called ready to pick. And then you could have that specified here in the picking sales document lookup batch. So that way it kind of gives you some filter capabilities to basically say like, okay, I've got my order, it's in here. I know it's in this designated picking queue now. So that way you can track that down, pick it on the order. And then the next side of things here is the pick finish batch. So once you fully pick the order on the scanner, and again, this is stuff we'll get into more detail and I'll actually show you what that looks like shortly here. But once you fully pick that on the scanner, all the items have been fulfilled. It'll automatically take that order that you just fulfilled and it'll move it into the ready to pack queue. So that way it kind of gives you nice visibility. So you're not having to go back and forth. So it's like, I'm not having to pick it on the scanner. And now I have to go into SalesPad Desktop or GP and manually move this batch or this order to a different batch. It's going to all happen automatically through the scanner. So helps you out there. For reference as well too, and I won't get into kind of the more finer details of it, but we also have a add-on tool with SalesPad called Remote Library. This is going to be present on the SalesPad desktop side of things. Essentially what this tool does is it runs and creates a service that usually run on a server. And if we have the setting on for forward documents on pick finished using SalesPad, instead of just manually kind of dumping it into this finished batch, what we'll do is look at the workflow you have in SalesPad and it'll actually forward it to the next queue. So the nice aspect there is that means it's going to be looking at things like workflow rules and workflow plugins. So for example, a lot of customers, after they fully pick an order, sometimes they like to have the packing slip printout. So they have that available as users or the next user department goes to pack the order. So if we have it set up, fully pick it, remote library is going, I'll find that order, automatically forward it. See, you've got smart printing set up in your system and it'll automatically print out your packing slip to the relevant printer. And same idea too with workflow rules. So I know I've had some customers where maybe as it gets printed out, there's different evaluations that need to take place because maybe certain items need to be packed on the scanner and certain don't. So kind of one common example is the EDI side of things of sales order processing usually requires more of the information that comes with packing. So just to be able to see what specifically is being packaged on an order, what quantities are going in package A, what quantities go in package B, and so on. So this way, maybe kind of do an evaluation and say like, hey, this is an EDI order related. So this should go into that ready to pack queue so I can get packed on the scanner. Otherwise, maybe it just goes directly to a ready to ship queue or ready to invoice and it's done from there. So again, all sorts of different settings here. I won't get into too much detail about a lot more, but one other one I will mention is we have this integrated pick and pack setting, which is probably right in front of me, but I'll search for it here. So again, sometimes customers need the information in the system that comes with packing, or maybe they just like that additional step as a confirmation in the warehouse process just to make sure, again, everything's looking as expected, all the right items are on the order, that they've packaged up, all the right quantities. But with some people or some companies, they occasionally have it where the person who's picking and packing the order is the same person. So by turning this integrated pick and pack setting on, the user can pick and pack the order at the same time. And again, I'll get into some more detail about what that kind of looks like later on or some of the menus. So usually that's just kind of saying like for quantity A on this order, I packaged 5 of it. That's on shipment A, package A or package 1. And then the other quantity for that item maybe put in package 2. See, but again, that's packing. Some of the other ones I'll go into are so that's picking, packing's kind of similar stuff. Choose your lookup batch to determine where orders are in your workflow, you're packing them, where they're going to go to next. Stock counts, we also have sorts of different settings. So stock counts, that's going to create a variance batch. So you'll have a variance record you can post in GP to update your inventory if what users are counting isn't accurate to what you have in the system. You kind of choose what batch that goes in. And then peer receiving as well too, something that comes up. So all sorts of different stuff. So determine if you require the PO on the receipt, determine if you want to limit one purchase order to one receipt, and so on. So something you just kind of got to go and look into depending on what menus you're looking to use on the scanner to kind of figure out what all you have available there and what's going to be relevant to your processes. Some customers, we have very simple setup, only takes a few minutes. Others, we have to kind of dive into what they're looking for, how we want to configure it, what they're attempting to do, or maybe we have to create scripting as well, again, for certain scenarios. Next thing we're going to jump into here, though, is the security editor. So for anyone who's kind of familiar with more of the admin side of things in SalesPad Desktop, this is going to look pretty similar to the security editor over there. So on the far left side, you're going to see all your users that exist in Inventory Manager. Again, this is a different set of users from SalesPad Desktop. So if you have a user who needs access to both SalesPad Desktop and Inventory Manager, you have to recreate their account over here. These user accounts are going to pertain, though, to logging into the console here and also on the scanner itself, though. So that you would have to do twice. Down below, I've got information so you can kind of see the passwords masked, display name, email. I haven't really had to use that too much in the inventory manager side of things. And then assigning them to security group. And if they have a relevant warehouse, you can specify that as well too. Then over here in the middle, you're going to have all your different security groups. So my admin one's really the main one I use, but again, maybe it's helpful to have an admin one so user can go in here, have access to all the setup and security, and then maybe you want to create a separate one that's just for users that are on the scanners. So they can't accidentally log in here, maybe change something or not know what they're kind of running into. Let's see. So security over here is going to be a mixture of things pertaining to the console and the mobile device itself, similar to what we saw in the settings. If you look for mobile, you're pretty much going to find all the stuff that's specific to the scanner. So for example, if I look at mobile picking, this is looking specifically to say that if I log in under the scanner under my account, I have access to the picking menu there. Similar to SalesPad Desktop as well, anything in here that has an asterisk is going to mean that there's additional sub-security for this menu. So you can see this one doesn't have anything down here, but this one does. So these are additional things. Sometimes you don't have to worry about these. It's usually just kind of more advanced configuration. So for the picking side of things, just basically saying if you can edit sales document user-defined fields from the scanner itself, whether it's a sales document header, user-defined fields, line level, and then if you can see them. Because sometimes we'll have customers that'll have information specified on the sales document through some kind of user-defined fields, and they like warehouse users to be able to view it, but they don't want them to edit it, or sometimes want them to view it and edit it. So I know I've had some situations where customers maybe aren't actually packing, but they want to do the picking, and maybe they want to put some kind of information. So maybe they want to have like a designated pack count they want to specify. So sometimes we'll create a pack count as user-defined field on the sales document. And as they're scanning, they'll fill that in, that user-defined fields, and they'll submit it. So that way it's updating that through the scanner as well. And again, they're not having to go into SalesPad Desktop and do it manually as a kind of after the fact process. So that is that there. Again, depending on what you're looking at, it's just kind of a mixture of things. Some have more setup than others. Stock count's one of the ones that has a little more functionality. That's just kind of determining if you're creating a stock count in the scanner, if you can start up your stock count, finish it, and so on. If you want to as well too, you can export and import security here. So usually this comes up more often if I am going from a test environment to a live environment. So maybe I'll come in here, export all the security from my admin group, then import that into the other one or my live environment. Or if I just kind of want to create a new one, I can always kind of copy that over so I have a baseline. So I'm not creating all the security exactly from scratch. Let's see. And then the final thing I'm going to get into before we get into the scanner side of things is the services. So when it comes to Inventory Manager and the mobile devices, there are two different ways that your mobile devices can connect to essentially your environment and your database and your server and so on. And that can be done through either our Windows service, which is directly here in the console itself in the Inventory Manager server. And then we also have another program for an IIS service, which is a little more involved that you can also install on your server. And again, this is just basically what your mobile device is connecting to kind of connect from the mobile device to your server, to your database. So as you're making changes and looking up information on the scanner, this is what it needs to use to be able to actually reach all the information to make changes as needed. In terms of differences between the two, either or works, and it's really accomplishing the same thing. My experience from what I've been told, the IAS service side of things sounds like it's maybe more secure though, or a little more. And also I believe I've been told that it's better at handling more devices. So if you're under like 5 or 10, I don't think you really need to worry about it too much. But once you kind of get past that point, or maybe 15 plus, and you know things are getting slower on the scanners, it might be something you want to look into if you're currently using the Windows service and you're trying to maybe move over to IAS. Again, I'm not going to get into too much details. There's a lot of configuration that comes with this, but Brandon more on the admin side of things. Again, this is something you just kind of pretty much set up on your server. And it's not really wanting to load right now. It's hiding away, so that's fine. But yeah, again, two different options, both work, same accomplish the same goals. But if you're getting to one where you have a lot of different scanners and maybe things are a little slower and you want to start investigating different options, that would be one of them. But again, with things being slower, there's a lot of different kind of aspects that could go into that, whether it's internal or external related when it comes to networking. But next, we are going to get into the scanner side of things. So what I have here that I'm pulling up, I'm actually going to pull this back up here too. Oops. What I have right here is BlueStacks, which is a free program you can download online. Essentially what it is a Android phone emulator. So what you're going to see on here is essentially what you would be seeing or pretty similar to on your own mobile devices that you would be getting for this. Again, when it comes to Inventory Manager, we have specifically supported scanners. So if you are looking to get scanners for Inventory Manager to use, you'll definitely want to double check our documentation to make sure you're getting the right ones. But for test purposes, this works pretty well, just a little slow at times. So again, just like we have on your phone, we've got your Play Store, and I just basically downloaded the app. I'm pretty sure in newer versions, it actually says Inventory Manager instead of the old name data collection. I think since I just had this downloaded on here since before the name change and how this works, it just has the old name. But log in there. This is what you're going to see on the login screen. So I'm just going to create a new connection, show you what that looks like. And this is kind of what I was talking about just a moment ago when it comes to connecting through either the IIS service or the Windows service. Custom service I've never seen used, so that one I'm not sure about, but these are definitely the most common. IIS usually is more the default that I run into, or at least that's what I usually use in my implementations. So what you're filling in is pretty similar, but just pretty much pointing to the server address where you're hosting that service. So again, for anyone who's not more on the technical side of things, not something you'd have to worry about. It was pretty much a set up the connection, just like a SalesPad desktop, and then it's good to go, and then you don't have to worry about it, ideally. So I'm going to log in, so I've got my own service already running here. And here is what we're going to see. So you can see all sorts of different menus. I'm just going to get into a few on the call today, but there's definitely a lot out there. So the most common one that we are going to have is picking. So like I mentioned before, picking is essentially the fulfillment of your items on the order. So to start off, we've got your document number. So it's just going to be your sales document number from SalesPad or GP. To start off with here, you can either manually type in your document number. If you've got a barcode for your sales document number, you could scan that. Or what I can do, because I have this filtered to that batch, is I can also come over here and click this little arrow. And this is going to pull up all the orders in that batch that I had with that setting that I showed you before. So I already have a specific example, so I am just going to throw this in here. Give that a second to load. Then once you've got that in there, the next thing you're doing is the item number. So this is just what you're fulfilling at that point in time on the scanner. So here, again, you can either manually type in the item number. If you've got a barcode for the item number, you can scan that, or you can click this arrow off to the side. And this is going to show you all the items on your order. So it's kind of nice too, because you can see the quantity that's going to be fully or needs to be picked and what's been picked so far. So I'm going to say I'm going to do this item here. Give that a quick second to load. And the next thing I'm going to choose my quantity. There's a few different ways you can do this. You can either use the plus or minus here. If you want to, you can type in there. Or we also have a increment quantity by scan function you can turn on from the console. So every time you scan the barcode for the item number, this would automatically increase. So there's a lot of different options. But once you're doing that, I already know my site or warehouse I'm fulfilling it to is north. This is what I was specified on my order in SalesPad. And now I'm just going to choose my specific bin. So again, if I've got a barcode, I could scan that with the bin number, manually type it in, or I can click this arrow over here. And this is going to show me all of my bins. Give that a second here. So you can see here my auto crate bin, I've got 2 available, 78 over here, a lot over in this bin, and so on. So I'll just pick this one here. Again, picking my quantity of 4. And then I'm just going to submit. So, and it helps if you don't have your sales document open. Let's try that one more time. So that's kind of a good thing to keep in mind too as you're doing this. This is respecting locks from SalesPad and GP. So if you got that open or that order open in SalesPad or GP and you're trying to do stuff in the scanner like picking, it's going to pick that up and give you that message. But otherwise, see it's successful. And now we can go on to the next item. So I'm going to do this one. It's going to be a little bit different because this item is going to be serial tracked, unlike my last one. So now that I've got that, I'm going to choose my bin that I want to fulfill from, which is my North Test bin 2. And now I'm choosing my serial number. Again, if you've got a barcode for that serial number, you can scan that, manually type it in, or the arrow over here is going to show me all my serial numbers that I have available to fulfill from. So I'll do that one here. You can see, and this is kind of helpful too, because serial numbers is going to be kind of a 1-for-1. So if you got multiple serial numbers, because right now I just have a quantity of 1, so that's all I need is just that one serial number. But if I had multiple, it's going to keep showing the last one you scanned, so you kind of have that reference point. But you can click submit. Give that a second. And again, these Android emulators are a little bit slower at times. And I will kind of mention on a side note too. Yeah. 1 second. Let's try that one more time. Okay. Yeah, I think it automatically picked it up. So, yep. So that is pretty much it. And now if I come over here and open up that order, I can see automatically move the batch to ready to pack because it's been fully fulfilled on the scanner. And if I look at my quantity fulfilled, I can see now it's got the quantity of 3 over here and the quantity of 1s here. And if I look at my fulfillment as well too, I can see the specific bins that I chose on the scanner have been used and recognized. So keeps it all exactly as what you do on the scanner is what it's going to do in SalesPad. So it should be all consistent and accurate for you. Next we'll do here is the packing side of things. So I'm going to jump over here. We're going to work with that same order number. And I'm going to go a little bit quicker. It's really going to be a lot of the same menus. And honestly, as you're kind of going through here, you'll see these are all pretty straightforward. So it should be pretty rare that you're kind of getting into something like this and have too many initial questions once you become familiar with kind of 1 or 2 menus. So I've got my 120 SD RAM. Again, you can see I've got my quantity of 3 here that I need to pack, 0 to pick, so everything's already been fully picked and fulfilled. So I'll do that. And then down below, we're just going to do package 1. Get that submitted. Give that a moment here. For reference too, you can create different package types. Sometimes that's helpful if you're referencing different things on the back end or kind of reporting. So maybe you've got packages that are kind of like specific types of 4x4, 10x10. You can kind of specify that in here. So you can see I've got a test package and one I clearly created very quickly here. So I have that for reference on the database and the back end side of things. See, this is fully packed now. Do my other one here. Again, choose my serial number that I need to pack. And we'll put this into a new one. So I'm going to click that question mark, create a new package, and submit that on. For reference to Earlier I mentioned that you can also update user-defined fields when it comes to menus like picking and packing. If you're trying to do that on the header level, it's usually just clicking that eye up here. And I might not have that turned on for the packing, and I can't remember if we support that over here or if that's just on the picking, but usually that's where you'd have that, assuming you have security access from the console as well. Otherwise, I'm going to click submit, and it's fully picked or packed. So if I come over here now, oops, reopen that order. Yep, you can see it's now moved over to ready to invoice. So again, as you're doing this on the scanner, it's all updated in real time, keep it consistent and accurate to what you're doing. So that is that there. Next we are going to get into PO receiving, and then we'll kind of dive more into barcode stuff pretty quick here. So PO receiving, I'm going to go pretty quick again, just time allotting, because I think we might have a few questions out there as well too to get into potentially afterwards. So I already have a PO number. So again, manually type that in. If you got a barcode for your PO number, you can do that. Otherwise, I'm going to put that in. Give that a moment to load and process all the data as it's pulling out the line item information and so on. It's thinking about it. There we go. And I've got the same items that I did in my orders, kind of consistent test. So got my quantity of 3. I already know my site or my warehouse because that's what's specified on the purchase order and SalesPad. See over here, these are all my bins where I've got on-hand availability as well too. So I'll throw that in there. Vendor document number, you can fill that out as needed. I can't remember if it's with dropship POs that might be required, and with standard it isn't, if I'm remembering right. Let's see. So get that submitted. And essentially, as you're performing these PO receiving processes on the scanner, this is going to create a receipt. And that's what needs to be processed or posted in GP for the inventory to actually become available. They're receiving here on the scanner. So for this side of things, there is a secondary step to make that inventory actually available. Yep, you can see that's a receipt it just created for me. Then I'll do the other one as well here too. And then, yeah, this way. So this is a little different because we don't actually have the serials numbers yet. So I'm just going to use this auto assign feature here. We have a setting that kind of determines this auto generate format. So by default, I think this is kind of just going off the current month, day, and year that I'm receiving this in with some other information in there. So I'm just going to generate 1 here because that's all the quantity that I have on the PO. Throw it into one of these bins. And then we should be good to go. Cool, and there you go. See, it's been fully received. So when you're ready, you can go find that receipt. On the GP side of things, get that posted, and that inventory is available to go through and pick and fulfill. So one other thing I want to get into more detail here that kind of glossed over is scanning of item numbers in Inventory Manager. So default out of the box is what it's expecting is the barcode that you are scanning is the actual item number as you have it set up in SalesPad or GP, essentially. But there are different ways we can go about kind of accounting for different things here or different scenarios where it might not line up because maybe what you're scanning is actually a customer item number or a vendor item number or something like that. Let's see. So let me jump over here. Yep. So like I said, when it comes to barcodes, that's scanning things like sales document number, PO number, item number, serial number, etc. So when it comes to the item number side of things, there's a few different menus and some things in the SQL database that kind of pertain to addressing other scenarios or ways of handling things. So in the Inventory Manager console, one menu I didn't talk about yet is the item barcode maintenance menu. So that's where you can go in. I'll show you this in a moment as well too. Being safe, this barcode or this value here, this pertains to this item in my system. So if I scan that barcode, it should automatically be translated on the scanner to show the item number instead. On the SalesPad desktop side of things, we have a similar thing with barcode maintenance. Same idea. You specify what that barcode is. And if that gets scanned, that can get translated Only thing to keep in mind here is on the inventory manager side of things, if you're using item barcode maintenance there, that will automatically recognize by the scanners. So there's no additional configuration beyond that point. But if you're filling it on the SalesPad desktop side of things, there's some additional work that's needed to get that recognized on the scanner. Because technically these two menus are fulfilling these barcode informations in different parts of the database, and only the inventory manager console is recognized by default. So the next thing to reference is our custom SQL stored procedure. So anyone who's not as familiar on the SQL or technical side of things, within the database, we have these procedures. There's one specifically we have called the DCCP item barcode underscore update. So what you can do is set up the stored procedure to look at different parts of the database to kind of do these translations for you. So again, if you have maybe things like vendor item numbers, where maybe that's where your translation's taking place, because maybe you have it in your system, say, for this item number for this vendor, this is technically the item number they have, and that's what's going to be on the barcode, and set it up to reference that part. Maybe you have user-defined fields on the item record. I have a lot of customers that have done that with unique values, or like UPC codes, especially is a common one that comes up. So those definitely happen a lot. So we are going to show you some of these here really quick. So we'll go through the inventory manager one first. So that is going to be right in front of me, I'm sure. There we go. Item barcode maintenance. So you can see it's pretty simple. There's not a whole lot here. Just basically creating a new record and say maybe my item that I'm scanning is Pro-1. And what number that actually relates to in my inventory is Pro-1. Get that created, click OK. And that has that set. So the next time I'm scanning a barcode that says Pro-1, it'll automatically get recognized and do that translation on the scanner. Whoops. To go over from that Pro-1 to Pro-1. Because you're going through and doing this on the scanner, this is technically looking for what you actually have in your system. So that's why when I put in my document number and did this little side part, see all the item numbers, you're going to recognize those are the items in your system. So this is a good way to get that automatically done. And then on the SalesPad desktop side of things, I cannot remember where it is. It might be under inventory, but I'm just going to search real quick. Here we have the barcode maintenance. You can see very similar idea. So I can go in, create a new record, type in my actual item number, and then what the barcode is that you would scan for it. And this one too has an additional option, so you can choose a specific unit of measurement. Because I know some customers have situations where maybe their vendors are providing them with different barcodes per unit of measurement for item number. So, excuse me, maybe for your each, it's Pro-1. And then maybe for your case, it's actually Pro-2. So those would be ways you can go in and kind of handle those different scenarios. Like I mentioned, though, one downside is to using this on the SalesPad desktop side of things is this is only recognized over here with scanning on the SalesPad desktop. So if you wanted to actually utilize these barcodes, you would need to make sure you update that in that stored procedure I mentioned before. So to kind of show you that super quick, it's a very basic one I have in my own environment. Usually it's more complicated or doing other stuff. And again, it's definitely the more technical side of things. So no worries, that's something you're not as familiar with. Just kind of get the general idea of what is possible. But in my environment, I have a GP user field. What their fields are usually called like US CATVL _3. So what's happening is I'm scanning the barcode. It's looking at my system to see if I have any item numbers that match my inventory item number or that GP field there. And if it matches any of those, it's bringing back the item number from that table. So again, just doing translation, look all across the database for you. And then there's also some scripting on the inventory manager side of things as well too. So for example, we have a scan parse script. If I'm remembering right, I think I've had some scripting with customers in the past that I've used this for, where it'll scan out the barcode. Sometimes customers or their vendors, they'll have additional information in the barcode outside of the item number. And they kind of want that parsed out because maybe it's only part of it is actually relevant to them. Sometimes we'll do scripting with customers, kind of find those scenarios, say if it has these characters or this certain phrase in the barcode that's being scanned, take that out, and use the rest of it to actually scan the barcode, because what we take out shouldn't be relevant, and what's left over should be the item that we want to actually put into the system. So again, all sorts of different options and things to handle there and address. But other than that, I think we are at the 2:45-minute mark. So we are gonna jump back over here for Q&A, I think. And again, too, like I said, there is definitely a lot more I could get into. There's so much stuff in Inventory Manager, and I've been here 5 years, and I am still learning and finding new things. So this is definitely a small take of all the things that are possible and capable in here.
Yeah, nice job, Kevin. Appreciate the very detailed demos. Like you said, a lot in a short amount of time, hard to cover it all. Same with the questions. We're going to do our very best to get to as many as we can. But if we're not able to answer your question, we will definitely follow up with you and make sure you get that question and any other questions answered in a timely manner. All right, first one for you, Kevin. Can you block select bins from fulfillment?
Yeah, so let's see here. There are a few things. So one thing I didn't get into as much is we have a add-on for Inventory Manager, which is our extended warehouse additional licensing that comes with that. And with that is a warehouse configuration menu here. I'll try and load that really quick. And this has a lot more kind of filters and capabilities like that. So you can see on like kind of a specific bin level. So you can see I've got all my warehouses over here. So if I'm looking at my north warehouse, I can say for my auto create bin, this should not be pickable. So I could do that as one way to say like I should not be able to fulfill from this. Outside of that, there's probably scripting we could also do when it comes to the picking menu, because again, there is the picking scanner. Yeah, the picking pre-submit script. So it basically means when you click submit on the scanner, before it actually goes and submits that to the database, it'll use whatever logic you have in the script there. So that can maybe do something if you've got some logic in your database or things to reference to kind of say like, hey, this bin here, it's marked to not pick from. So again, throw a pop-up and error message. So it's definitely a few different ways that could be addressed.
Awesome. Thanks for that. And then real quick, Inventory Manager, obviously there's a few different parts to it. Is it the type of product where you have to download or implement the full product, or can you just implement bits and pieces at a time based on what your business needs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, like I said, with Inventory Manager, there are so many menus, and I think there's even some I haven't had a chance to really work with too much. So it's definitely one where we have a lot of customers where maybe like right off the bat, like, yeah, we want to do picking and packing, we want to do stock counts and receiving, but sometimes it's just overwhelming. There's a lot of things to learn and can do and kind of changes in the warehouse related to these processes. So it's definitely not uncommon to start off with maybe just picking or maybe just picking and packing, get users on there, implement it, get some time to get used to those new processes, and then slowly advance and kind of work your way to the other menus from there. So it's definitely a common thing that happens.
Cool, good to know. This should be an easy one. Can we print item labels from the mobile side of things?
Yeah, so let's see here. There is a menu here. There's some additional configuration. There is a item label printing here. So this is essentially referencing reports that get created from the council. It's a little bit different than what you see with most normal reports. It has kind of its own scripting language, so it's a little more kind of advanced. But the idea is you can come in here, find your labels. So I've got one just called test that I've created, put in your item number. This is kind of what all gets referenced in that kind of scripting with the report you create, and this can print it out. I think the caveat here is this is set to work with Bluetooth printers, if I'm remembering right. I know if you Google Inventory Manager item label printing, I think we have some documentation out there on it, but that would be one option. And that does kind of remind me of one other thing I didn't mention as well, too, that I want to get into, just super quick here, is for anyone familiar with smart printing on the SalesPad desktop side of things, we do have a sort of equivalent on the Inventory Manager side of things. So here under the setup, smart printing config. So this isn't exactly for what you're asking for, but good thing to keep in mind. You can have it set up so as you're performing certain functions or transactions on the scanner, So again, bin transfer, item label printing is going to be like one relevant one there actually. I could come in, say, as I'm performing picking, maybe this is only for certain warehouses or all of them or certain users. I'm going to automatically print out my bin label item report I've created. Again, these are reports coming from Inventory Manager, so these be separate from your SalesPad desktop reports. And then choose your printer that you're printing out to. And then you can choose to, it's like every time you click submit or other functions, these drop downs can be different depending on the transaction type, but this is a good way to automate printing as well too when it comes to different functions that happen on the scanner outside of implementing kind of the workflow we talked about for remote library. So good question.
Cool. Alrighty, the next one is more of kind of, I think you can answer it based on your experience, Kevin, and it might apply to several of the folks on the call. This person's wondering if you recommend Android-based scanners over iOS scanners. They currently have iPhone 6s LEDs now, and they're looking to upgrade, maybe considering that. So I don't know if you have any feedback on that.
Yeah, it's tricky. Like I said, definitely the biggest thing is looking at what we have supported on our page. So I know sometimes the list updates to add new things on there depending on different devices. One other thing to mention too is I know we have customers that have come to us with specific devices they're interested in that we don't support. So sometimes they'll reach out to us and they'll pay for consulting and development time to kind of look into those devices because maybe they have certain functions that aren't available on other ones that are supported. So sometimes we'll look into that for the customer with some kind of project to kind of see if we can support that or if we need to make changes or if it already works out of the box. Between iOS and Android, I feel like I run into Android more often, but I can't really say beyond that if anything comes to mind in terms of a preference between the two. But Android's definitely what I have more often, or at least I feel like within the last year or two.
Good deal. Thank you, thank you. While picking an order, can the product be moved to a specific bin automatically?
Yeah, so on the inventory manager side of things, there is a setting for that here. Let's see if I can find it. Essentially, it's like a temporary picking bin. Yep, there we go. So there's a setting here. So items will be moved to this bin before being picked. So the idea is as you pick your items, it'll automatically move that bin's fulfillment or the fulfillment of the item to whatever bin you specify here. So the only thing you need to keep in mind, because I think I've had one customer who did use this setting, is sometimes they would remove that fulfillment because maybe something happened with the order or get canceled. So you just need to make sure that you're aware that the item is still in that temporary bin because maybe the user actually put it back in the shelf where it was before. So you just need to make sure you have a process to make sure that's getting updated in the system as well. So they'll probably just be using the bin transfer menu on the scanner once you remove the fulfillment from the order, and then you can get that moved back to where it needs to be. But that would probably be what you're looking for right there.
Okay. Let's see. If we cannot complete an order because of missing inventory, can you still complete the order on the mobile? We're stuck. That last item is not scanned.
Yeah, so it depends. On the scanner, there's not really a great way of doing that. One customer that I work with, what we did for a scenario like that is essentially the scenarios they'd be picking the order. Maybe they had all the items, it'd be like the last quantity of one they found out they just didn't have in the system or in the actual warehouse floor. So what we did is they came up with a process where they would go to SalesPad, they would back order that quantity of one, and they would forward the document. And then we had a kind of a setup where it would split off the document. So that quantity of one that was back ordered to go off to a back order queue, and then all the stuff that was actually available and fulfilled on the scanner would move on to what that was ready, the pack queue or the next step from there. So unfortunately from the scanner, it's not a great way of addressing that, but usually in the SalesPad desktop side of things, I'll create something like that. So it's at least trying to automate and account for that process as much as you can.
All right, thanks for that answer. What if you have multiple UPC codes for one item?
Let's see. So again, user defined fields are one option there, but again, that's kind of accounting for you're going to have the idea of one user defined fields per UPC code. So if you have multiple, I guess it depends on how that works. So
Yeah, and that might be a really specific scenario too, and we can always follow up with the person that answered that one or asked the question.
sure. Yeah, because otherwise too, if you're looking for maybe a more slightly advanced scenario, you'd always create your own table in the database, or if you're working with a consultant, we can maybe help out with that, or developer, and maybe have like a updatable quick report in SalesPad where you have access to the table you've created. You can kind of add or delete records from there and just add that again to that stored procedure, the DCCP item barcode update. So it's also referencing that new table. So that would be one idea if you've got something where it's the amount of them is going to be more than one, and it doesn't really relate to like one vendor item number sort of things. Maybe it's multiple per vendor or some kind of combination like that. So that would be one option there. Is just create a new table in the database and have a way to update and populate that.
Okay. I'm going to squeeze one more in. It doesn't look like we're going to be able to get to all of them, but like I said, we will follow up with everyone, make sure we get all of your questions answered. I know we have a lot of like really specific scenarios, so we'll get to those with you individually. But if we already use a WMS, is Inventory Manager a replacement for a WMS or something in addition that you can use?
Yeah, it really depends on how it's being used. I know I've had some customers where they've moved off of different WMSs to kind of work with us and our product. I can't remember if we've had some that use Excelos and they moved to us. And it's tricky as it's kind of one of those of there's certain things we do differently than them, or maybe some things we do that they don't do, and or other things that also do just flip side of that. So we do, they don't do, we do. So a lot of it, yeah, I would recommend for that scenario is probably reaching out to your sales rep and kind of talking with them through what your specific needs are, what you're looking to get out of the software, what you're doing currently. And that way we can kind of get a better idea of what we have suits your needs, whether out of the box or again through configuration and script things like that. Because that's pretty typical stuff when it comes with our implementations is we want to try and make this as tailor-made to your processes as much as we can. So definitely work your sales rep, kind of figure out, have the discussion, go from there, probably be the best route.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kevin. I'm going to have you go to our last slide with the QR code on it. I'm going to go ahead and close us out. Of course, I want to thank you, Kevin, for your time, but even more importantly, I want to thank all of you for joining us and spending about an hour with us on this Thursday afternoon. We hope to see all of you next month on April 18th for a webinar dedicated to all things shipping with Mike Radin from our sales engineering department. We'll show you how you can enhance your shipping process and elevate the customer experience you provide by saving time and eliminating manual data entry. If you would like to dive deeper into your organization's specific needs or have any questions about what you heard today, just let us know. Reach out to your account executive, like Kevin said, or you can scan this QR code on the screen. That'll take you to a really short form where you can jot down all your questions. It'll send us a message and we'll be in touch with you very quickly after the webinar. When you exit the webinar, there will be a 3-question survey, nice, short and sweet. We'd love your feedback. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you next month. We hope everyone has a great day.
Thanks all.
Thanks.